So many PC builders these days are all about squeezing out that maximum amount of FPS for your dollar. Today's build will accomplish just that, as I'm not wasting any extra money on aesthetics, RGB, cable extensions, or anything like that. I'm gonna show you exactly how to build this $850 pure performance gaming PC, explain why I chose all of the parts, and then of course, I'm gonna take it home with me and daily drive it for a few days to see what it's truly capable of. Before all that though, I gotta build this thing over on my Thirsty Thursday live stream. Make sure you're following me over on twitch.tv/ZachsTechTurf. So starting with the CPU, this here is the Ryzen 7 5700X that I grabbed for $161 off Amazon. The CPU choice is honestly a bigger debate than even the GPU at this price point because you gotta determine if you wanna go with AM4 or AM5. Typically for a personal build, I'd actually recommend more so on the AM5 side of things, especially if you value future-proofing, but for a pure performance, every last FPS for your dollar kind of challenge, it makes more sense to go with AM4. I can save money now by getting a cheaper B450 motherboard like this ASRock B450M ACR 2.0 that I grabbed for 75 bucks. I can also save money on cheaper DDR4 RAM like the Clev Bolt 2x8GB 3600 MHz kit that only cost me $34. If we were to go AM5 now, along with the more expensive CPU, I'd also be paying an additional $30 to $50 on the motherboard and another $50 on the RAM since 32GB is the standard with DDR5. In the long run though, there is a possibility that you'll regret that choice, but before we go down that rabbit hole, let me tell you about today's video sponsor, which you definitely will not regret. Charge, and specifically their SharGeek 170, which could possibly be the coolest charger on the planet right now. I mean seriously, what kind of battery bank looks this nerdy and gives you all this information? It's honestly perfect for tech enthusiasts like ourselves. The SharGeek 170 can charge 3 devices at once with 2 USB-C and 1 USB-A ports. It has a max output rating of 170 watts, and my favorite part is the 140 watts of max input, so you can get it juiced up super quick, put it in the included travel bag, and then throw it in your own bag so it's ready to go. The best part is the smart display that shows you exactly what it's outputting and inputting in terms of wattage, so you can easily min-max your power brick and cable choices to get the best possible result. With 24,000 milliamp hours, this can charge your devices multiple times over, and I'll have a link to where you can pick one up for yourself down in the description. Alright, so in the long run, I think you could regret the AM4 decision just a little bit since you'll eventually just want to upgrade to AM5, but again, to squeeze out the most performance possible today, AM4 allows us to do that. We now have more room in the budget to target a big 1440p graphics card as opposed to having less money for a more than likely 1080p graphics card. But let's not jump ahead of ourselves just yet. For the SSD, I grabbed a $57 Team Group MP44L, which is a 1TB Gen 4 NVMe. This is actually slightly better than what I'd expect in a pure performance build, but I ended up with a few extra dollars still under $850, so I put them towards a faster mid-level SSD. For the power supply, this is an EVGA 700GD that I grabbed for $75 off of Amazon. You actually have several choices around this price point, especially if you're willing to drop down to tier C on the PSU tier list. For the case, you also have a lot of options, but man, it's getting harder and harder to go with anything other than the Okeanos Aqua 3. This is my second time using it already, and it's just such a beast in terms of value. For 60 bucks, available every day of the week on Amazon, you're getting a nice fish tank display as well as 3 ARGB fans that are pre-installed. Now, it does look a little funky with 2 up at the top and 1 in the back, but that's actually because this is a negative pressure airflow setup and there aren't any intake fans for this build. Basically, these 3 exhaust fans are all pulling in air from any hole around the case as opposed to intake fans specifically directing where the fresh air comes from, and we're about to see in the benchmarking section just how effective this type of cooling setup can be. And speaking of cooling, for the CPU cooling duties, I grabbed an ID Cooling Frozen A410 DK. I already love the Frozen A410 cooler, but this DK model actually provides 2 fans for a little push-pull design, and I wouldn't say it's 100% necessary for a 5700X, which stays pretty cool already, but it definitely doesn't hurt anything, so I like the addition here. And finally, to wrap up the parts list, we have the breadwinner GPU, none other than the PowerColor Fighter OC RX 7700 XT. This was on a monster sale over on Newegg for $350, and at the time of writing this video, after we even did all the benchmarks like 2 weeks later, that sale is still going on right now. The normal price of a 7700 XT is usually around the $380 to $400 mark, so them starting to creep down to $350 is a welcome treat. I have a feeling this isn't a random one-off deal, and we'll start to see more price drops around this level in the near future, so definitely keep that in mind if you're trying to copy this at home. And speaking of which, if you're doing just that, then here's the entire parts list and the exact prices that I paid for everything. Other than that GPU, which could possibly be the new future pricing, none of these parts were purchased on a crazy deal or anything, everything, so I consider this an extremely repeatable build and price guideline to follow for yourself. And just as a reminder, if you want more pure performance build guides like this to follow, over on zttbuildhelp.com, I have exactly that with per part explanations and links to where you can pick everything up. That's all totally free. But now that this PC is built, let's take it home with me for a few days so I can give it a true daily driving test and see what it's capable of. For the setup, we're back to all my normal daily drivers, which are the Corsair HS80 headset, the Corsair K65 Plus wireless with some upgraded Gatoron Oil King switches, and I got the Zero Mouse V35 on top of the Artisan FX0 Extra Soft mouse pad. For the games, I'm not gonna beat around the bush. I'm already back to playing X-Defiant after I publicly saluted the game and said it was the end just a few days ago. X-Defiant just came out with a new space program update, and it's just enough to warrant me checking it out again, so that's what we're gonna do. For this build, we can definitely get away with 1440p and ultra settings, and the only adjustment I made was turning off VSync. There's just so many things that I love about this game, man. I also just found an X-Defiant YouTuber named J Bowen Demand, which I'm definitely vibing with, and yeah, I'll consider myself unretired from this game, at least in this point in time. The $850 build was performing great here as well, with around 120 to 130 FPS depending on the map, but even more impressive are those CPU and GPU temperatures. The 5700X was staying in the low 60s, and the RX 7700 XT was down towards the high 50s, which you love to see. After that, I tested the finals, which is still just a hedge against X-Defiant in case it does actually die or if I actually retire, and I put the settings for this one at 1440p, but kicked on TAUU this time for the renderer. This is the least AI upscaling option of the three, so it's as native as possible, and I put the preset up to high. I jumped into the first game here of Power Shift, and I was honestly afraid this was going to turn into a long benchmarking run. The PC was running very smoothly around 80 to 90 FPS, but my team was getting absolutely smoked for almost the entire game. Thankfully, towards the end, we did take control of the platform and then dominated on it for about 2 minutes, which secured the dub for a nice little comeback. But here you can see, yet again, those same CPU and GPU temperatures are looking extra chilly. The negative pressure airflow setup with the Okeanos Aqua 3 definitely works. And finally, the last game I'm testing at home is Witchfire again, and I put the settings at 1440p high for this run. I actually unlocked a new zone from the last benchmarking run called Scarlet Coast, and this is definitely a tougher one than the starting zone. I mean, at some points, these enemies just kept on coming, but I thankfully unlocked the sniper rifle, which definitely helps being able to actually do damage at a long range now. The game was running somewhat smoothly around 90 to 100 FPS, and this title really pushes the GPU up towards 100% the entire time. The only thing that's still a bit iffy with this one though is the stuttering every now and then, but that's definitely because of early access. I'm not an engineer, but I would like to see them address this by using more CPU processing power to keep it stable, because the CPU is barely used at all when playing this game. Either way, it's still a really fun one that I'm enjoying, specifically because it's great for those quick 10 to 15 minute jump in and jump out style of gameplay sessions. So after all that, we brought the PC back to the office so Sam could do a full benchmarking run, and here are his results. I'm not kidding around when I say that the 7700 XT can play literally every game in 1440p with high or ultra settings. This is some of the best value we've ever seen for a 1440p GPU, and I love this new world of PC building where you can get an honestly high-end 1440p system for $850. Well, that's of course if you only care about pure performance and no additional aesthetics. But while we're talking about aesthetics real quickly, just for the record, these lights in the Okeanos Aqua 3 can of course be changed. I honestly only kept them at white for the majority of this video to highlight that this is a pure performance, minimal aesthetics kind of build. But with these lights set to different colors, you would have the flexibility to make this PC match up with any color scheme that you want. Throw in some cable extensions in there that match the color of the RGB fans, and then you got yourself a normal aesthetic build in my opinion. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this build guide. If you need some additional help building your next gaming PC, then don't be afraid to join us over in the ZTT Discord server, which is linked down in the description. We have so many PC building help channels depending on what you need, and we even just launched a new certified build helper role to boost the quality of help that's being given in the Discord server. And finally, if you haven't seen any of my other pure performance build guide videos at different price points, then feel free to click the playlist that's on the screen now.